Well, it's been 63 years since General Eisenhower served our military, but key aspects of his leadership endure. And I would say it's in a concept of coffee, tea, and a quilt. So you may ask, well, what do you mean by that? Well, coffee. General Eisenhower, as we look at our leaders of the future, the leaders that we want in the military, the leaders we want in our Kansas communities, the leaders we want in our state, the coffee concept, the ability to sit down with someone over a cup of coffee and build positive professional relationships. We lack that somewhat today in the iPhones, the electronic devices we have, that personal relationship of looking someone in the eye and building that positive professional relationship. T. I use the letter T. We spend most of our life in the vertical part of the T, but for General Eisenhower, he showed us how to work in the top of the T. The horizontal part of the T, where you have a broad experiences and broad relationships with different individuals from different regions, from different areas, from different backgrounds, and to be able to thrive in that environment. And lastly is the quilt. For those of you that are quilt makers, you may have heard the term crazy quilt. And a crazy quilt is put together with different fabrics from different parts and pieces, and it's made into one quilt. And if you look at that quilt, you would just say, some people would just say, well, it's a quilt, it's got a lot of different colors to it. But really what General Eisenhower showed us as a senior leader was to embrace the complexity. And we live in a complex world today. And if we need leaders in the future that will look at that quilt and not just look at it and say it's different colors, but get a feel for the quilt, feel that texture, understand that texture, understand where those different parts came from and how that shaped the building of that quilt. We need leaders in the future that can embrace complexity, live and thrive in broad experiences, and also build positive professional relationships. That is the legacy from a military point of view of General Eisenhower. Thank you.
What a beautiful Kansas day out. Jean, thank you for coming here. Merrill, or as she refers to as Ike 3, up here, and I was looking, I can see it. Look, it's there. Delighted to have all of you out. Delighted to have my wife here with us as well. What a beautiful day, what a great time to honor Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower, the person that a group of historians for our sesquicentennial determined, picked, I believe unanimously, as the Kansan of the sesquicentennial. This was the guy that they said is the most significant Kansan in history. And you look at it, you can say, well, I don't know who else you'd put up. Five-star general, defeats Hitler, President of the United States, starts the interstate system, starts NASA. You can go just through a whole list of things. And also, what I find very interesting, keeps creeping up the list of the most significant presidents in U.S. history. So right after he's out of office, he's kind of not very far up the list because people are saying, well, he's kind of too quiet. He didn't really do much. You know, he's kind of like a duck paddling that you didn't see him move much on the surface, but underneath things were moving a lot. And he liked it that way, and he operated that way, which I thought was a good Kansas fashion. Just, okay, I'm not going to talk about it a lot. We're just going to get things done, which is what he did. I thought also he really embodied the great Kansas characteristics, great honesty, integrity, relationship building, faith, family, a sense of place were all very significant to him. Anything that you read about him and how he worked and the people he worked with, these were very important features to him. And how else could somebody get the people together and those generals that he was working with on D-Day, many of which had very large egos, nothing against military egos, but some of them were very strong, and get them all to pull together to get this done on a very dicey prospect. But the thing that I want to talk about very briefly is the people impact that he had. So NASA, he starts NASA. My communications director is Eileen Hawley. Her husband, Steve Hawley. an astronaut, former astronaut, that's there off of a legacy program that Dwight Eisenhower started. This last weekend I had a Brownback family reunion. We had 165 Brownbacks from 15 states. And the oldest was a Brownback that was on Omaha Beach on D-Day. He remembers it very well. It's a big impact on him. We've got kids here going to Eisenhower schools. We've used the interstate highways. Eisenhower has had a big influence on all of us. So much so that we're putting him on the Walk of Honor, but I'd like to see a statue about right up there of Dwight Eisenhower as the Kansan of the sesquicentennial. Don't have that done yet, but I'm hopeful that we're able to do that. Dwight Eisenhower, the quintessential Kansan, person who stood for the values of this state and carried them well to lead the nation and to lead the world. This is an honor well due to him. Also, other things, started the National Prayer Breakfast, Deep Man of Family and Faith. I'm delighted we have two of his descendants here with us today. Mary Eisenhower has become a friend, worked with her, talked about a lot of the family legacy, the things that they have done. They continue to carry that on. And she has some special memories to share as we're about to close in on the 125th birthday anniversary of 34th President of the United States. Please welcome to the podium, Mary Eisenhower.
Good morning, and what a beautiful Kansas day. I thought that I would share something that you won't hear in the history books, and that's since we're celebrating, along with the Walk of Honor, Granddad's 125th birthday. I was actually, the governor referred to descendants. Actually, there's one descendant and one relic, and the relic would be me. The descendant is my wonderful son, Merrill. But I was actually there in 1968 on his last birthday. He was in Walter Reed Army Hospital, and he had at that point, I believe, 7 massive heart attacks. And he would never leave the hospital on that birthday or after. But he was kind of, he was happy and kind of celebrating, but he was a little bit impatient, as he could be. And kind of tapping his fingers, and he'd just eaten a salt-free birthday cake that didn't make him very happy. And he and my grandmother, and I guess my father and myself and a sister was floating around outside of the room, but we were right there in the room. And the window was open. It was a beautiful day like today. And I heard some band music coming, and my grandparents looked at each other, and it flashed through the eyes, and he looked at my grandmother and said, "Are they here?" And with that, all of a sudden, doctors and nurses came out of nowhere and threw a bathrobe on him and put him in a wheelchair and took him over to the window and hoisted him out. It was the Marine Band playing Edelweiss and then Happy Birthday to him. And he was so touched that it went through my mind that maybe that was the first time he had ever heard thank you. You know how we thank everybody for their service. I think that was the first time he really heard it and it sunk in. And when they pulled him back in, from that window, he looked at my grandmother and he said, "Well, maybe I've lived long enough." And I'll never forget that, because I thought, how could one who had done so much feel like their life was even complete? I was very young. But today, I think more than ever, he would have heard thank you. And he would have heard it from a place that he cherished, which is Kansas. And amongst friends and friends who are yet to be friends, for the entire Eisenhower family, I want to thank you so much for this honor. It's just tremendous. Thank you, Governor.